We have an amazing group of panelists here, and we're going to do some introductions. And I always feel like I can never introduce people as well as they can talk about themselves. So I'm going to start with you, Jerome.
Mic checks. This thing on?
Yeah.
Hey. So my name is Jerome Hardaway. By day, I am a software engineer at Microsoft. I focus on building things within ISE using artificial intelligence. And at night, I am the executive director of an open source project called Vetsu Code. Teach veterans how to write software, also using artificial intelligence to amplify my actions. I'll say I've done about 4 enterprise level projects in artificial intelligence. There are some things that are out there in the world right now that, if, for instance, if you ever order coffee or you ordered a pizza in the last 6 months, you might have touched some of my work. But I've also have helped getting education, democratizing education to about $618 to go from zero to software engineer. For underprivileged veterans that are in the ecosystem. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. And Cecelia?
Yes, hello. I'm Cecelia Martinez, she, her. I am a lead developer advocate at OutSystems. So OutSystems is an AI-driven, full-stack, low-code software development and delivery platform. Bit of a mouthful, sorry about that. You may also know me kind of through a lot of Atlanta developer community work. I am the chapter head for Atlanta Out in Tech, which supports the LGBTQ+ community in tech. And I'm also a co-organizer with Atlanta JavaScript, which hosts meetups here in Atlanta. Before joining OutSystems, I've worked primarily with open source developer tools, and I come from a software development background. So I'm still relatively new in my AI career, and it's been really interesting to see the applications that software development and AI and how they intersect and overlap, and what you're able to accomplish without necessarily having a traditional AI and machine learning background. So that's it.
Awesome. Jay?
Hey everyone, I am Jairobe McPherson. I'm a cloud engineer at Google, focused on artificial intelligence and machine learning for our government customers. Been at Google for about 5 years, had a couple of different companies I worked at before that, but in tech about 10 years plus or minus. But when I came to Google, I started working in our cloud group, but I also did about 2 years working in Google Labs, running a product and engineering team over there. Google Labs is an area of Google where teams do product research and development. So, you think products that don't fit into YouTube or search or maps, you kind of get free reign to experiment with new things that Google could potentially bring to market. I ran a team there. We were focused on applying AI and ML to helping creators grow on YouTube. So there, I managed a team of senior software engineers, user experience folks, partnership development folks. So I have a really good, broad perspective on different areas in tech and in AI and ML that span outside of just the engineering side of things. I have worked hands-on with both generative models, which are all the hype now, as well as more traditional discriminative models. And now I'm back in a role in cloud where I help other organizations understand how to use those tools and apply them to the problems that they have to solve. So excited to be here. This should be a good convo, so thank you all for coming.
Hey y'all, my name is Neel. Can you hear me? Cool. Neel Shivdasani. I'm the product lead for the AI division at Automattic. You might not know Automattic, but they run WordPress and Tumblr, Pocket Cast Day One, a couple of other products. Pretty new there. Prior to that, I was a product manager at Mutiny, an AI-powered MarTech startup, and before that, I was at MailChimp for around 8 years in product as well as in the data science department. Outside, I used to organize a meetup called PyData Atlanta that was dedicated to open source data science. And I'm starting one up called AI Products Atlanta that's meant to be very cross-functional, like AI designers, AI engineers, product managers, trying to bring more people together than just the typical engineering-focused meetup.
which sounds awesome. And hopefully we're going to talk broadly enough about AI and the different careers and not just focus on the engineering aspect of it. So I have a question that I would love for y'all to answer, and that is, did you come to AI or did AI find you? And by that I mean, did you seek out working in AI, or were you kind of working and then suddenly found yourself in AI?
Little column A, little column B. So, I'm at Microsoft and everything suddenly came out AI, but I was also already kind of working in this space, right? So that was kind of cool. I was already doing a lot of data and Python work. So when we went here, I was, I'm already doing this. This should be fine.
So I would say AI definitely found me. I wouldn't say I was like a skeptic, but maybe a little bit more of a late adopter in terms of investigating it. When I did my MBA, I learned some R and found that data science was not my strong suit at all. Like it was, the math was not mathing, so to speak, with me. And so it was always something that I felt like, that's not my strong suit. That's just not for me, and kind of hadn't really pursued it in any way. It's when AI started becoming more accessible via different types of APIs and tools that are now available to software developers that I began to intersect with it a lot more. And, at my current company, really have had to embrace it and dive right into all the different applications of it. So I would say I didn't necessarily get dragged into it, but maybe something not too far from it. But I think with most things that you kind of find, it's been very different than I expected. So.
Yeah, for me, it definitely found me, right? So, I think at my core, I'm a software developer, engineer, and that kind of led me, through the various careers I've had in my professional career, but ultimately ending up at Google, which is, a lot of people's minds synonymous with cutting edge AI. And so getting there, just some of the projects that I worked on, right, like in cloud, did a lot of modeling during COVID for different government organizations, and then going back to my experience, running the team at Google Labs, where we're working with different models, both generative and otherwise. I just got a lot deeper into the space than I had previously. But I think I'll part with this comment and say, I think everyone, if you work in tech, you work in AI in some capacity. So I think it's, as folks think how to navigate that, it's really a matter of trying to determine what area, what specific subdomain of AI you have interest in, and then kind of going deeper there. Because I would imagine for most of us that are already in the industry today, your companies that you're working on or companies that you're thinking of, starting are going to leverage AI in some facet. So.
Yeah, I think, so my educational background is economics, and out of school I did forecasting and price optimization. Then when I moved to MailChimp, I was doing more like, data science with text, and then, moved into product, and over the past years, it's been a focus on generative AI, but all those things like could fall under the umbrella of AI in some form or another. It's all about using math or algorithms to help people make decisions or to make decisions for them. So in that sense, like it's kind of always been there, but then when generative AI became a realistic option, I was naturally drawn to it because it was just the extension of like fully realizing the things I've been trying to do.
That's cool. Nice. I do think it's interesting because so many people have had AI kind of creep into their jobs and kind of didn't even realize that they were working in AI until suddenly they were like, oh, okay, let me redo my resume. So, because it is a hot ticket. So I wanted to zoom out a little bit and talk about careers in AI. And Neel, you alluded to the fact that AI is more than just engineers, right? And so I'd love to hear kind of the main types of roles that you interact with regularly in AI and kind of what those look like.
Sure, I'll start. So, I'm a product person. I work very cross-functionally, and I think that, in my career of working on AI machine learning products, there's always room in any of the roles that you work to deliver a product to have some sort of specialty in AI, whether you're a marketer or a designer or a copywriter. There's always room to have someone of that skill set who's focused on AI. So I work with a wide variety of people, and I hope that all of them have some interest in AI at least. Outside of that, I do think that one type of role I'm starting to work with, which I didn't quite anticipate, is kind of like an AI evangelist. So someone who within a company is advocating for the use of AI in order to save employees time, or it sounds weird, but increase productivity. A big part, I work to deliver products to people, but we also, there are people working to deliver products to us, and they're trying to help us be more efficient in our work with AI. And so I do think that there isn't a dedicated role at our company, but I'm starting to see more people who are taking on the role of trying to figure out how can we use AI to make this process or this team or this role more efficient.
I certainly have some thoughts on the plethora of different roles that there are. I won't go down the full list, but in an effort to make things tangible, I'll go down a couple of different roles that we have at Google, right? And so, obviously, we have software engineers that work on machine learning, architectures and products. We have product managers as well that might lead a team around a particular AI ML focused product. Those are kind of like the more well-known roles. And then of course the researchers, right? So if you think about organizations like DeepMind and Google Brain, they have a bunch of folks that are have very deep expertise in the cutting edge stuff that we're doing there. So I think among those three, those are the ones that people think about when you think of AI and ML. But I think some of the other roles that are just as important are things like user experience, right? And so again, going back to my experience running a team, I think the user experience researchers that we worked with were the most valuable members of our team, right? And for anyone that's not, super, up and up on what UXR does, they're really focusing on what the problem is for users and mapping out that journey for them, right? And I think that's really important when we talk about AI, because AI is essentially a tool that ultimately should be implemented to help users, right? And so I think there should be a lot of thought put into how you frame problems and how you decide what problems can be solved by AI and what problems are better to leave alone, right? And so UX is another role that falls under that umbrella. Then you have roles that are more similar to what I'm doing now, like technical consulting roles where you may not be the actual individual that is doing the research behind the next bleeding edge model. We're actually the software engineer that's writing the code to optimize infrastructure to run it, but you may be someone that is very knowledgeable in the space. How do you apply these models to a certain set of problems? How do you optimize them? How do you do that at scale? And your job may be just to consult with other organizations on how to do that. To tail that off, you have folks that are actually responsible for implementing the consulting that goes into these other organizations, right? So I work on the sales side, talking to government agencies, hey, you have this problem, this model might be able to solve it. There are other folks that are actually tasked with implementing those models as well. And the last one that I'll highlight, because I think this is a really important topic of conversation, is the AI ethicists as well, right? So folks that work in responsible AI. As these models get bigger and more powerful, it's going to be very important that the industry births folks that are thinking about the ethical considerations of these models. And I think that's an area where a lot of people don't necessarily think of going into. So tons of other stuff you can do, but those are just a few examples. So.
Yeah, so I think I'll probably touch on two that I hadn't heard mentioned that are kind of more related to development operations. But the first is this kind of concept of an AI engineer, which is a software developer or a software engineer who either creates AI-powered apps or builds apps that interface with some way with existing models or existing APIs versus training models themselves. So if you think of like full stack software application, like this is kind of the front end of AI, in that you're maybe not creating those models and training them yourself, but using readily available tools in order to create AI-powered software applications. The other is related to more of the kind of ops processes around AI. So there's ML ops, which I've met some people who work in that field, because you're dealing, once you kind of start to integrate and work with AI or machine learning, you're dealing with a lot of compute, a lot of data. There's specific governance processes that need to be in place to ensure that your regular data and the types of processes that you're using are interfacing the right way with anything that is generated by AI. All of that are operational roles that exist and that are kind of increasingly in demand in terms of understanding what types of infrastructure and processes need to be in place for that to work correctly. So those are two additional ones that I've seen where if you already have a software engineering or a DevOps background, just by better understanding what the specific requirements are of working with AI or ML tools, you can kind of pivot in a way to meet that demand.
Thank you. So in my network, for the big three that I've seen that, and I think this makes a lot of sense because these are areas that have nothing to do with tech and then suddenly they're in tech or they're tech adjacent. The first one that I've been seeing is training and education. I don't know if anyone else in here has a network with a lot of professors or anything like that, but I've seen quite a few professors jump from academia into working at AI companies and starting helping train these models. So that is a clear way of people who are really strong in research but may not have written a line of code a day in their life are coming into the tech side now. You have the professor who was at Stanford, is in charge, who was history buff at Stanford. She's now helping train the models that you're going to be writing code with. To piggyback on what the other Jay said, or I guess the first Jay, you have great hair, so you're older than me.
Come on,
so, Jay Senior over here. He said, in regards to the AI ethicist, I'm going to ruin that word. I'm just going to say responsible AI expert. What happens right now, particularly in market, is we have a race of go-to market. Everybody's trying to be first to add something into their app with this. And, as a result, the downside of moving fast and something like this is, people mess up. So I see people who are experts in responsible AI, that role is starting to grow, and it's only going to get bigger as we get more mature in the AI space. And finally, it's a relatively new role in DevRel, so it's definitely becoming not DevRel, sorry, I guess cloud engineering. So it's definitely become a new role in AI, cost efficiency management. You'll be amazed on how they come into these projects and they are so excited on what they're going to build. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, yo, this is expensive.
Turn it off.
Help us, turn it off, throw the whole thing away. And you're like, wait, we told you this is expensive at first. No one told you how much this costs? That's wild, D. So those are the big three that I'm seeing, right? People who are going to be focusing, I know in cloud, they have that type of role where there are people that just focus on the costs and benefits of what you're building, try to minimize that cost. That's something that's going to be coming to AI in like the next 2 years because it's expensive. It starts small when you're playing with little gender stuff, and the minute it hits public, you're like, oh my goodness, this bill is $10,000 and this has only been live for 30 minutes. Like, what do we do? How do we solve this? And once again, responsible AI and the idea of like educators are now coming in to train these models. Those are three very exciting roles that we're seeing happen now and grow.
Yeah, I do feel like this is the first time in a while that I've seen when doing app development and using AI for that you really have to look at your cost, or else it just it goes crazy. And that's kind of new, and it's something I think a lot of engineers aren't used to calculating or even thinking about. So that's a really good, what people don't normally think of.
It's a really good specialty as well for you engineers out there that don't know your spot in tech or in AI. Learn how to make sure it's not expensive. That way, learn about LLM compression and things of that nature. How are we going to make the model switch based upon, how do we store tokenization, things like that. Those of you who learn that, you're going to be an asset without having to go as deep as others when it comes to software, AI engineering, software engineering.
I think that a lot, we have kind of people who are already in technology who are like, how do I break into something? And I feel like that's a little bit of an easier path for people because you have some experience, but I also think that there are people who maybe have no experience in technology and want to break into AI because it is the new hotness. And I don't think it's going away anytime soon. So do you have advice for people who maybe don't have that technical background to fall on? Well, to use as a something to help them get over the hump and get into AI?
I can take that one. I think use AI to learn AI. I mean, I kind of think of it as when people like ask me, how do you get into tech, right? Even if you're non-technical, we have this idea that a tech job you have to be in a technical role, but you can also work in tech in a non-technical role at a technical company, and the same thing goes for AI, right? If you can think abstractly and understand the language of AI, so to speak, the different use cases and the terminology around it, those high-level concepts, then you become much more valuable in a sales role or in a user experience role, in even a customer support or success role, in a developer relations role. And you can leverage these AI tools out there in order to help you learn and understand that. I ask, AI questions all the time just to better understand concepts. I use it to help me when I get stuck, like trying to working with a specific API. And by interacting with the tools, then you be better understand them because you are using them the same way that a user does. And that's something where you can at least start to expose yourself to it and interface with it and understand it, while still maintaining the specific skills that you already bring to the table that may not be specifically technical. But having that domain knowledge versus the technical knowledge can also be really valuable.
That's a great point, and if anybody's interested in kind of following that advice, Liberty White has been doing a thing, she's been posting on LinkedIn a lot about kind of bringing how to use prompts and things like that, and that seems like a good place to start.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, if you do not have any experience in tech, like none whatsoever, start with prompt engineering. I will say, I bought the year-long ChatGPT Plus plan. It was $120. Best $120 I have ever spent in my life. That thing paid for itself in the first month and a half. I, in side projects and contracts alone, have been able to make about $50,000, $60,000 just being able to leverage my experience with prompt engineering and AI on top of software engineering. So like that is the first, that's the lowest level fruit I can recommend. Start with prompt engineering, ChatGPT Plus. Start seeing how you can build on skills. Start seeing how you can use that to learn a new skill. Then go from there and start messing with the API. Start going into that API layer and play with that with the playground. See how you can do the system message. See how, especially right now, you're in UX or you're interested in user experience. Understanding how to get that that system message, to get that personality, as they are saying out here in the nerd streets. I'm sorry, I'm a clown, y'all. This is what it is. You're gonna get what you're gonna get. But to get that that brand personality, which is very important to companies right now. They don't just want AI. They want the AI to sound like them, whether it's that Nabisco cookie monster thing that says like Cookie Crisp or whatever. They want that guy. So that is what you have to start thinking about, augmenting that skill to your current skill set and growing from there. We see this market as this is the era of the writers and the thinkers and the creators, people who are artistic already. They are going to have a very big advantage on those who originally, when you thought of how when Germany first decided how we were going to grade intelligence using core mathematics, that used to be the original plan, but now we're seeing writing and the people who are the creatives, they're starting to really expedite the growth of AI usage. So even if you're like with photography, Adobe's artificial intelligence tools for photography is très magnifique. It's amazing. So I would recommend just starting with prompt engineering, seeing what things are your interests, seeing how you can apply artificial intelligence to that thing, and then just, don't stop. Annotate, take notes, and just keep moving.
I have a couple thoughts I want to share too, and I'll pretty much double down on something I mentioned earlier, and that's, I think, the way to think about this is focusing on problems rather than the technology, right? I mean, when you think about the technical side, the engineering side of building and training models and deploying them, that's like the feasibility aspect of things, right? But really, at the end of the day, whether we're talking about AI or some other technology, it is there to solve a problem, and that is something that anyone can do, right? And so, I think if folks spend their time that want to get into AI and ML, spend their time on really getting some rigor around how they frame problems and understand what potential solutions might look like, you'll find yourself drifting into the technology side of things as the problems you try to solve become harder and harder, right? But I think the real skill there is, the actual scoping out of, who has this problem, how big of a problem is it, why is it hard, what's the impact if I was able to solve this, and then looking at the tools that you have, which AI and ML could be one of them, to actually go and solve that, right? And I think for folks that can tell that story to a company, right, whether you know how to actually build the model or not, it doesn't matter, right? They'll go staff engineers and find the folks that do have that expertise, but the value really comes in how you apply that technology, right? So that's my 2 cents for folks that are non-technical that want to get into it. I'm sure Neel, as a product guy, probably has some thoughts there too, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'd say my thoughts are pretty in line with what everyone has already said. I think the one way of reframing it that I might contribute is that all good AI products are built with a strong opinion in mind. That's why a startup can come out of nowhere with no historical data and make millions of dollars. It's because the people who built the product have a strong opinion about how a specific problem is supposed to be solved. And if you're out there buying a product, you want a product that has an opinion that will make you better at whatever job you're trying to do. So in that regard, if you're not in engineering, if you're not in tech at all, I think it's an underrated tactic to just try to get into tech through a product that is related to the work that you are familiar with. So if you have experience in retail, photography, the opinion that you have and the expertise you have there can help you apply AI more effectively than someone who doesn't know about those things. So I'd really recommend starting with some sort of domain expertise that you're familiar with and break in that way.
A lot of really good advice. I think that, for a long time, there are a lot of people who were either career pivoting or they were kind of searching around for a new job, and there's a whole host of companies who were very excited to give them the answer. And that was, come to my boot camp, I'm going to teach you how to code, and then you're going to go get a job making $70,000 a year. And that was great for a while, and then COVID happened. But even without that, like, there was kind of a saturation, and so you suddenly had a bunch of people who were like, okay, here's my resume, and they looked like every other person in their cohort. And that became really hard because there weren't any entry-level jobs left because they had kind of already been taken by the cohort before. So there was some market pressure that was already happening there, and now we've got AI coming in, and we've got products like Copilot and things like, I know there's like 50 Copilot products, but I'm talking about the one that developers use. In this case, the sell of that is like, we're going to write your unit test for you, and we're going to help you with your documentation, and it's going to be fantastic. And so there's a lot of it feels to me like a lot of the work that you did as a junior developer or like a software engineer one is kind of getting chipped away. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on if that is true or not, and if it is, what do you do to kind of break in?
I'll take that one since I think I deal with the most junior engineers out here. So first, junior engineering isn't going away. Junior engineering is changing. You're going from not caring and having to focus on the syntax of the problem to focusing more on how you think about the solution. So the way I have framed it in my head is, oh, that book about how to think like a programmer that when I first learned how to code, I was like, this is useless, became useful, right? I still have that book. I didn't throw it away. I was shocked. So that is one thing. So you're going to, for instance, with my troops now, we have still very heavy human in the loop protocols, right? Because that's what you're supposed to have with AI. If you don't have a human in the loop protocol, then AI is going to fail. So our education, human in the loop protocol, we have the first sergeant go through a very intense design doc process. This takes, if you're meeting up with your first sergeant once a week for about 30 minutes to an hour, it takes about a month. So we are asking all types of questions, all type of interview questions, having them do mock-ups, having them go through the process of going on Figma, picking out colors, everything, thinking of features, then going from that design doc to actually going to their project board and building, fleshing out those tickets, deciding what is the definition of done for each one. Oh, what about your accessibility components, right? Accessibility is a part of getting the work done. If you don't do accessibility, your product's not finished. Oh, what about your unit testing? I don't know why JavaScript engineers don't like unit testing, but it seems like it's the plague of their existence. It's like, don't make me unit test this. Like, oh my, you can see it, it works. Why? Why do I have to unit test this thing? I'm
Guilty.
like, because you're supposed to. Shut up, don't make me yell. So like that's what we do, right? So that is how junior engineering is going to change. You have to start thinking more about solving the problem at its core and less about the type of projects and the 3 little projects that you're going to share with the screenshots. We've been arguing about this for about 2 years, where we're saying people brought 2019 style of boot camps into 2024, and they're shocked at the problem. I mean, the solution isn't there. I'm like, well, if people have been doing the same thing before we had artificial intelligence and a saturation in the market, then yeah, you're going to fail because everybody has the same single page application with 3 projects on it. There's no, you go to that project, it's not even live, or you go to that project, it's on a repo that's half done, or they're not thinking about the user experience research that they're doing that. And that's what artificial intelligence helps you do. Now it's your job or your responsibility to get more involved in the thinking and the planning aspect, right? So Don't Make Me Think, great book, has nothing to do with AI, but will help you become a very strong software engineer in the era of AI. Think Like a Programmer, like there's like 3 different versions of them on O'Reilly and like Automattic Programmers, another great book. There's a user-friendly, I am brain farting this book, but it's about user-friendly at scale. That's another great resource that you have to learn, because as programmers, especially when you're going through a boot camp, you're only thinking about doing enough work to show that you know how to code, or convince the person on the other hand that, hey, I'll take a chance on you, give me money so I can figure out how to do more of this code. But you don't really know how to code at scale on a professional level. So how do you code in a collaborative manner? How do you code at scale? How do I code in a manner that, well, guess what? If my stuff breaks on my machine, I don't take the whole $1 million company down with me. No joke, I literally took a website off in Australia by myself on my first 3 days of coding solo when I was a junior. First 3 days as a software engineer, I'm the only person working on a site in Australia. Took the whole site down, thinking this Australian was asleep at the time. You know what? How do I not do that? Those are the things that, as a junior, you can focus on learning now. So that's, like I said, I have 10 years of yelling at juniors. So this is I'm obsessed with this. So take it for what it's worth.
I guess the only other thing that I'll say is, I think about AI as an accelerator, and it changes the way that you think about what knowledge means. So, before the internet, right, knowledge meant how many things can you memorize out of the books that you read? How much information can you recall? like memorizing formulas or memorizing historical facts. Once we had the internet, that didn't matter anymore. We didn't need to memorize everything because we could look it up. So knowledge became around, critical thinking, writing skills, application of knowledge. Okay, yes, I can look up a fact, but how does that pertain to historical trends or kind of more abstract thinking? So I think it pushed us forward in how we think about solving problems and what knowledge means. And I think that AI is the same. It's an accelerator in that it's going to force us to think around, okay, how you do something, the steps that you follow, the specific syntax, that is going to matter less and less. But we as humans can then push ourselves and say, okay, now that I don't have to have that tedium or focus on that, now I can spend time thinking about higher level problems. And so if you're a kind of person who struggles with that and who feels more comfortable with, hey, give me a list of tasks to execute and I will go and do that, or tell me exactly what to do and I will get the job done, then I think that's where you will need to kind of challenge yourself more and push yourself to think more around how can I solve higher level problems, how can I think at a more abstract level, because that are the types of things that now you can spend more time on, and AI will kind of take care of more of the tedium, the same way that we had with the internet. So if you do feel uncomfortable with that, and it's fair, like that's a very normal reaction to have, just kind of push yourself to think about what does it mean to think about problems in a different way.
Great answers. I want to pivot a little bit from there and say so the job market's weird. I mean, there's layoffs, then there's people hiring, and then it's tough, right? And I think that people feel like they want to have some base of knowledge before they go try to get a job. So are there things that you recommend for people to get up to speed so that they can be conversant and they can approach an interview from a place of knowledge, maybe not knowing everything? It's okay to still be a junior, new person entering the workforce, but how do you come to that armed with knowledge and opinions?
I have some thoughts on that. So I know I talked a lot about not having to focus on the engineering side, but for this comment, we are going to focus on the engineering side, right? So I'm a big proponent of certifications, some certifications, not all, but not because I think they're going to necessarily always help you get a job, right? So for context, I actually sit on the team at Google that makes the the cloud machine learning engineering certification for Google Cloud. I work on the questions and all that stuff, right? I think the study guide that's out there, the preparation material that we put out there, and Microsoft has their own one, AWS has one, there are others, right? I think the preparation content that they put out there to get you to pass these exams, in a lot of cases is really good and offers a really structured way to go about learning the key level domains in AI and ML, right? And so I think by going through that process and preparing for an exam, whether you get it or not is kind of irrelevant. It's kind of the journey to get there to take the exam will help you out a lot, right? Even for me as someone that, again, sits on the team that makes that exam, I went through, for Google Cloud, there's like a whole 9-course process on Coursera. And it took me a while to do it, but after I was done, I was like, wow, I actually learned a lot, right? And then, for some certifications, I will say, it can, depending on the type of job you want to go for, it might help you, right? So I know specifically for like the cloud level ML certifications, obviously those things might help with your credibility if you're trying to get into one of the big cloud vendors. But alternatively too, I know at Google, we're very partner heavy, right? So, when we actually go and sell cloud to a customer, we usually work with partners that help implement whatever it is that the customer bought. And many of those partner companies are actually required to staff folks that have certifications in various things, from AI and ML to other things, right? And so, I usually tell folks, if you do go through the preparation for something like that and end up passing the test, which, by the way, it's not as hard as you would think. The passing grade is actually relatively low. But there are companies that may want to hire you just because they're required to staff, 20 ML engineers on their team to partner with Google, or I don't know, Microsoft does the same thing. But anyways, long story short, I think in a lot of ways, going through those things will provide you a good structured path, right? As opposed to you just getting out there on your own and trying to figure out, like, where do I go? Do I learn about ML ops? Do I learn about the different frameworks? Do I learn about this? You can really just follow the course that's been laid out, and when you're done, you may not be an expert, right? Like, don't expect DeepMind to just hire you because you got one of those certifications, but you will be able to hold your own in a conversation if you encounter one of those folks a lot better than before. So that's my 2 cents.
So for my perspective is not that of an engineer, so I wish I could pass that class. But I think that's something that I always find valuable and that I would recommend people do is using as many AI-powered products as you can, and discerning what is actually good and what is not. And any product that is good, they'll be talking to some extent about what they're doing, how they're doing it. And I think that can give you the sort of conversational framework to talk about, what technical terms are they using publicly, what marketing terms are they using publicly, and being able to converse about what people are actually building. It's definitely a less technical approach, but it's something I would recommend for anyone who's maybe not on the engineering side of things.
Sure. I agree with. I agree with all that. So my developer brain wanted to just start building things. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna interface with this API, or I'm just gonna get my hands on and start building something. But the ecosystem is so different than what I was used to, and there are risks involved, like that cost that we talked about earlier, and what do you mean I used up all my tokens already, kind of thing. And so I did start taking a certification course. I'm doing the Microsoft one, and that helps to kind of give some structure. I don't want to start anything, but I'm sure the Google one's great too. But it did give me a structure to understand what the different aspects were of the AI ecosystem. So definitely +1 to that. And one thing that I also did, which may seem strange, is I started going to a lot of marketing webinars. So every AI tool, anything that has remotely related like an AI feature, they will have marketing webinars that are designed for non-technical people. So you can learn what some of the terms are, you can kind of get a sense of what is the big picture here, and that helped me to develop some of the language and write down some terms that I could then go and look up documentation around. And so that was kind of a way for me to even just dip my toe in and see okay, what's the language of AI? And those are always free, and they're plentiful. I'm sure you see a million of them on LinkedIn every day. So.
Ironically, marketing tech is the hottest tech to look at when it comes to learning AI stuff. So that is actually a good play. I wish I could be one of those people that said go do a certification or take a course and then that'll help. But as a person that took one, passed it with the highest score on my team, and still had no idea what was going on. I just can't do that. For me, it was I don't know if y'all know this, but Gemini, Azure, and OpenAI all have playbooks. So you do OpenAI.playbook.com. I always recommend people start OpenAI before they move to Gemini or Azure AI, simply because as a startup, they are the cheapest. And they have the most user-friendly code. I love Microsoft, but I'm not gonna lie to her hey, kind of expensive, brother, and you're hard to understand. So that is what I definitely recommend. Just go. What I did, I spent $50 on OpenAI's API, and I literally built a Slack bot and trained it for its behaviors to figure out how to use that OpenAI. And then I went to Azure AI. It was there's a few things that are different, between this and that, but not that much, right? And then I was able to start getting into the things I cared about more, right? Because everybody was on generative AI, and I was more on predictive analytics and things like that. I wanted to know, I had 10 years of data for my veterans. I want to know with my 97% success rate, what works and what can I replicate over and over and over again, and what parts can I delegate to a machine, what parts can I train to my volunteers, and stuff like that. I wanted to learn, that's the only reason multilinear regression even stuck in my brain, because I was like, that's a lot of words, don't care about that. So, but that is the process, going those playbooks, spend $20 and build a thing. I know people are like, oh, don't build a thing, that's crazy. I'm a build a thing person. I have to get my hands dirty. I just can't be, you put a book in front of me or maybe go through a video course, I am going to glaze over. In the military, we called it death by PowerPoint, and it's just you're like, what are you doing? I don't even know my name anymore. I'm gone. I'm out here. So that's that's what worked for me. Might not work for everybody, but at least go through those OpenAI or those playbooks, because that's a lot of free information that works, right? And that's what you really want. Free information that works. That's where you're going to start at. So that's my input.
I just want to quickly plus one what the other Jay said. I think above anything else, certifications or whatever, build, create. And I think that is a hack, again, whether we're talking about AI and ML or something else, right? I know for me personally in my career, just the fact that I've been able to repeatedly show folks things that I've built has really helped me get into some of the places that I've gotten, right? For context, Google has historically been known for hiring folks from Ivy League schools and all the academic, blah, blah, blah. I went to school right here at Georgia State. I don't have a graduate degree or anything, right? So, coming out of school and going into Google, I didn't have that to lean on, but what I did have to lean on is hey, look at this cool thing that I built. Look how I thought about applying AI to this unique problem that no one else has thought about, right? And I think that is a recipe that anyone can take if you're a self-starter. Again, whether you are someone on the technical side that can actually go build an application and show it to someone, or someone that's more on the non-technical side that, maybe you do a write-up or, a product requirements document for an idea that you have of how you could apply AI to a unique problem. I think if you can do that in a strong manner and communicate that, it can be really interesting to potential folks that might want to hire you. So.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that we stress on what Jay Senior said. He doesn't want to call me younger Jay because he's being a hater. So that whole bill thing it's a hack. My degree is in criminal justice. I got it while in the military. I have zero computer science backgrounds. Everything I've learned about software engineering, I went through the internet, taught myself. But until about 2010, I didn't even know that you could build a website. I thought you got an LLC and the website just appeared. So that is where I came from, to be able to work with artificial intelligence at Microsoft. So, and it all started for me going on Barnes and Nobles, because I saw a random commercial about databases. What the hell is a database? Went to Barnes & Noble, saw a book, started doing tutorials on it, started messing up my machine and putting it back together. And the next thing you know, Department of Homeland Security hired me as a database analyst. So that is literally all it takes, regardless of your background. Showing and doing is worth 10 times more than just knowing or being able to regurgitate the information.
Yeah, and if you think of yourself as a person who can build software, keep in mind that AI is definitely changing that. I think we're entering an age when to get a prototype up and running of something, you probably don't need to know how to code. We're probably entering an age where if you want to start a new company, you just need to be able to get the simplest prototype built with AI, with Replit, Copilot, and then that's enough to get the engineering talent who will see your vision through to completion. But you can build software without knowing how to code right now.
Actually, I have one last thing. Sorry, this will be quick. For the folks that are coders or do want to get into actual model development, a good resource that I like to tell people about is Kaggle. If you haven't heard of Kaggle, it's basically a community of folks that work on AI and ML stuff, right? You can go on there, you can find other projects that people have posted, and essentially like compete in some instances, sometimes compete for money in building your own models. So anyways, that's a cool resource to check out.
Can you spell that out?
It's a Kaggle.
Well, it feels like we've already segued into this whole idea of resources, so I would love to lean into this a little bit and talk. I mean, Kaggle's a great start to that, but I'd love to lean into things like that, but also, like, how do you stay up to date? Are there podcasts that you recommend that you listen to, or is there social media that you recommend? What's your go-to, and what do you recommend when people come up and talk to you after a panel or something?
I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I don't listen to anything out there. I go straight to the source. I keep it absolute 100. If I am thinking about your technology, I'm gonna go to you and talk to you about the tech, or I'm gonna go to your website, and that's how I'm gonna learn. And you'd be amazed that if you did that, how many relationships and like connections you would build. Logan Kirkpatrick is like now my BFF, and I barely talk to the man. Like, he sent me a Google I/O invite to go to their thing in Mountain View, California. I was like, I have another thing to do that week. I'm sorry, and I had to give the ticket to one of my troops, and I didn't even have to ask for it. So like, that's my go-to resource. I'll go straight to their like OpenAI's blogs. I go straight to Microsoft Learn. I will go straight to Gemini and play with Gemini. I sit there, I'll do prompts, and I'm like, hey, so this prompt was different over here than on this one. I'll even like write letters up and like, hey yo, and let them know why was your prompt over here. I think you're leveraging search a little more, which Gemini does. Leverage search a little too much for your AI, but I ain't gonna hate. But and it's like, okay, so this is how you add those prompts. But that's, for me, that's what works. If there's a technology that I like, I'm gonna go straight to that technology's source of truth, and learn from their website, learn from that. Because especially in the era of, like, you guys are spoiled. You're so spoiled. When I learned how to code, DevRel was not a thing, right? Developer evangelist was not a thing. People that wanted you to learn how to use the stuff that they built so that they could like sell it to you was not a thing. It was, hey, if you either know this stuff or you're stupid and you shouldn't be here. Like, that's it. Oh, you don't know what IRC is? Like, how many of you were in IRC days? 1, 2.
Chat?
Huh?
IRC chat?
Yeah, IRC
Oh,
chat.
Yeah.
For sure.
How many? Okay, the rest of you, spoiled. You have no idea what nightmare. It was ghetto. It was like Vietnam. It was horrible. Like, you have no idea. You all you survived a good thing. Just saying. I'm jealous because don't know what it is. But back then, there was no help like it is right now. Now people care about how they write the docs, make it human friendly, and keep it updated. Back in my day, by the time you got a book, the book was already useless. Like, it's 2 updates behind. This is trash. So like, we have, like, you all are living in a very exciting time where you can just go straight to the source and learn directly from there, and it is updated and it works. And I am selfish because I'm hating on you publicly, but I do not care.
So, Jerome, that sounds really good, but let's say that I'm a newly minted graduate. I just graduated from Georgia Tech, but I have a history degree. I don't even know where to start.
I think that maybe like a controversial resource is just Twitter. I think that the most important thing is the problems that people are solving with AI. And if someone's solving a problem, you'll hear about it on tech Twitter. People will be talking about it. That's how I stay on top of the news, is I see someone will get excited about some product somewhere, and that's what I'll look into.
I think too, like, if you're brand new, you're like, hey, I hear about this AI thing and that there might be jobs, right? I actually did find a thread on Twitter, but it was like, hey, somebody was like, I had to do a crash course in AI for this my new role. These are all the resources that I use. And it was a long thread, and one of them was learnprompting.com, .org, I'm not remember exactly, but it's just called .com. And that just takes you through, hey, this is what generative AI is, this is how a prompt works, these are how you can kind of give instructions to a chat bot. and things like that can just give you exposure to the space. But I mean, the nice thing is, you know, we're driven by, you know, capitalism, and AI is considered a, you know, lucrative area, and so the resources are really good. You know, usually documentation is terrible because, you know, nobody really cares, but in AI, it's imperative to make sure that the documentation, the free courses, you know, Google, Microsoft, OutSystems, we all have free courses that are available for training. So there's a lot of like more formal resources if you do like the structure of a course and you're brand new and you don't even know, like if you were to start building, like what to pick to start. So I think like, yeah, learn prompting was really great, and following some of those kind of more structured things is helpful for me.
I have one that's been recommended to me that I have not done, so I'm gonna go like, I'll take it for what it's worth. Deep Learning AI by Andrew Ning. There you go. Thank you. I was going to destroy that. I was going to get canceled. Thank you. Andrew Ning. It's a resource that a lot of people recommend, but I think just using the hashtags on LinkedIn works fine. Going on there in the search bar, using like hashtag AI or hashtag deep learning and have it search, you're going to find a lot of good materials out there. Or the internet in general. Like, you know, remember, we have like this magic box at our fingertips. It's amazing. Like, so just Google it. You might find out a resource that I don't even know. So I think the best advice about this being brand new is allowing yourself to be scared and figure out the resources that work for you. Because what works well for 4 of us may not work for you at all. Like, you may need to use someone might have figured out a way to teach large language models and AI on CodePen, talking about the patterns that you see in LLMs, right? So these, you know, are all different ways that we're all educating ourselves, but you might learn something totally new.
So this is a really good time to segue into questions from the audience. Yeah, I would love to open the floor to questions if anybody has any. I'm going to walk around with the mic.
All right, thank you. So I really enjoyed the panel, and I had a quick question for everybody on the panel as well, is how do you handle a layoff, and how do you go and upgrade into a better position for your career?
I got laid off, I think 8 months ago. I don't know, just don't take it personally. I think the most important thing that you can leave a layoff with is like the relationships of the people. And so the most important thing to develop throughout your time at a company is just relationships and connections, I would say. And then if that happens, you know, hopefully not, but if it happens, they are what will get you out of it quickly.
+1 to what Neel said. And so since we're all friends here, you know, I'll give you a little bit more context as to my background, right? And so, you know, I mentioned I've been at Google for 5 years. I worked in cloud and I also worked in Google Labs, right? I actually got laid off last year. So Google got rid of the entire unit in Google Labs that I was a part of. I got laid off, but then quickly essentially got rehired back into cloud when that layoff happened, right? And so I think the message that I want to send there is exactly what Neel said. You know, in that about 2 months in between being laid off and being rehired, you know, I was able to connect with other folks in the company that I, you know, built up through my network, and that really helped me essentially just land right back where I got laid off from. So I want to double down on that message that your relationships, your network, are probably the most important things you can build, right? You know, it may not be the project that you're working on because, you know, to a lot of companies that project is just a line item on a balance sheet, but those relationships can really, really help you. You know, when unexpected things happen, like layoffs, right? The other thing that I'll say too is that, you know, when I was laid off, you know, there were a whole bunch of other folks that got laid off as well. That community aspect of, you know, connecting with other folks that were in a similar situation was the difference between, you know, not only myself, but other folks that are in that situation, like being able to make it through that difficult time, right? You know, for instance, my boss, he was a pretty senior person when I was in Google Labs. He'd been at Google 16 years. His whole identity was wrapped up in this company. And when he got let go with the rest of us, if he didn't have us around, you know, he told us, like, it would have been very difficult mentally for him to, even continue. So anyways, long story short, community, people, that's the most important thing at the end of the day. In terms of getting back into the job market after the layoff, again, I think the more you can show rather than tell, the better it's going to be for you, right? Especially in a situation right now where there are layoffs, unfortunately, happening all across the industry. There's a lot of very talented people in the talent pool. The difference between whether you get the job and someone else that's in the talent pool may come down to what you can show, right? Because when they get your resume and they get someone else's resume and they both say X amount of years of experience and this thing and that thing, it all starts to blend together. So hopefully that can help anyone.
Yeah, it's great advice. The only thing that I guess I would want to add is to be very kind to yourself and to other people who have been impacted by layoffs. The way that the market is right now and just the way the climate is, you can do everything right. You can show your work, you can have a great network, you can go on interviews and nail it and still be laid off and unemployed for a very long time. And it can be really difficult emotionally to not take it personally, to just keep fighting and going forward. I knew a lot of people in the community who have been impacted and have had that experience. So I think it's just really important to be kind to yourself and give yourself space to go through that, because even like I said, I know people who are doing every single thing right. If I had a job, I would hire them in a second, right? It's you kind of almost are at a loss of what advice to give them at this point, besides just being there to listen and to help however you can. And I think also giving that grace to other people who are in that situation.
I'm going to be the unpopular person up here. I transitioned tech after the Great Recession. So I left the military thinking I was going to have a bunch of cool jobs. Hey, look at me. I'm security forces. I'm Phoenix Raven. I protected the president. Of course, y'all going to put me on Secret Service. Sign me up, dog. And they were like, thank you for your service, but we had a need for personal use skills. I was like, what? Y'all were just calling me a hero 5 minutes ago. So I had to retrain, and I had to break. That's what inspired me to break into tech. Of course, the jobs were abundant. The amount of people yelling at me I could count on my fingers, and air conditioning. And of course, no one was trying to kick my ass. So I was like, I'm here. I'm just going to be here forever. But I took a mantra from the military after that I have not broken to this day. And it has helped me with my career. And that is stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you all. Can we get a round of applause for us?